So let's pour Guinness and get right into this. Let's talk about classic scents. I've been doing a lot of thinking about what classic scents mean to me, what part they have in my collection, and I think that, yes, these still belong in my collection. These colognes are a staple when you look at perfumery. They've been around for a long time, and yes, our fathers, our grandfathers wore them. Some of us started out with them, like I did. I started out with a lot of classic scents. Now, as my nose evolved, I thought, well, maybe these aren't me anymore. But if you study the hobby of cologne and perfume, if you study perfumery, I think you need to look at everything. Perfumery is an art form. Whether it is making your own scent, buying a scent that the perfumer made for you. It can be like fine wine. Now, I believe we must study every aspect of perfumery if we really want to get involved in the hobby. And that's why I think that classic scents do have a place for me to study. Now, the sad thing is that many of these classic scents, like this one, or this one, or this one, they have had the unfortunate evil hand of reformulation. We study these scents that our fathers or grandfathers, or scents that we started out on. If we study these scents, there's still a little bit there. This is 4711. This was invented in 1792. When you think about the history of this cologne, just imagine all the years and times that it's gone through, how many people's lives it's touched. Notes are orange oil, peach, basil, bergamot, and lemon. The middle notes are lily, melon, jasmine, Bulgarian rose. Base notes are patchouli, vetiver, musk, sandalwood, oak moss, cedar. And you can get this stuff in a huge 800 milliliter bottle. Now you may ask yourself why that is. Because it's an eau de cologne. It only lasts a couple hours. Something to refresh you. Take a look at Old Spice. Old Spice was launched in 1938. The top notes are nutmeg, lemon, orange, star anise, and aldehydes. The middle are carnation, jasmine, geranium, cinnamon, heliotrope, pimento. The base notes are benzoin, cedar, vanilla, tonka bean, and musk. Now, Old Spice is one of the first colognes I wore in high school. It has been around forever. Fathers have worn this. Grandfathers have worn this. Uncles, brothers, you name it. Yes, this is a drugstore scent now, but I believe it's a staple. Should be a staple in everyone's collection. Look at Canoe. This was also released in the 1930s, and It's an aromatic fougere. Top notes are lavender, clary sage, lemon. Its middle notes are cardamom, patchouli, bourbon, geranium, cedar, cloves. Its base notes are tonka bean, vanilla, oak moss, heliotrope, and musk. This is going to be your classic barbershop scent. And as a side note, it's what Junior Soprano wore in The Sopranos. This is a classic man scent, definitely. Nothing says a classic man like Canoe. Now let's take a look at English Leather. English Leather was launched in 1949. It's a leather fragrance. Probably one of the first leather fragrances. The top notes are bergamot, lavender, lemon, orange, rosemary. The middle notes are honey, iris, rose. The base notes are cedar, musk, tonka bean, leather, and vetiver. Now what I get from English Leather is definitely a leather feeling. This is something that, I could see someone back in, 1949, early 1950s. This was very popular. I could see people, I could see somebody dressed up in their business suit, going to work wearing this. Once again, it suffered the hands of reformulation, like all these scents I'm talking about today. So it'd be really interesting to find a vintage bottle that still smells like it did back in the day. Now let's look at Pinot. Pinot Sylvester. This was launched in 1955. It's an aromatic fougere. It has bergamot, lavender, basil, lemon, juniper berries for the top notes. The middle notes are carnation, nutmeg, geranium, thyme, fir tree. The base notes are amber, cedar, musk, tonka beans, and moss. Oak moss, probably. You spray on a little bit of Pinot Sylvester, it's like you're in a pine forest. It's beautiful. That's Pinot. Let's look at Tabac. Tabac was launched in 1959. It's also made by the people that make 4711, Meyer and Wertz. The top notes are aldehydes, lavender, neroli, bergamot, lemon. The middle notes are carnation, sandalwood, orris root, jasmine, rose, pine tree needles. The base notes are tonka bean, amber, musk, vanilla, oak moss, and tobacco. So, what Tabac brings you, it brings you a nice, fresh, barber clean shop with that hint of tobacco. The more I start to use Tabac, the more I start to fall in love with it. Now let's take a look at Brut. Brut was launched in 1964 by Fabergé. The top notes are lemon, bergamot, lavender, anise, basil. The heart, you have geranium, jasmine, ylang ylang. The base, you have sandalwood, oak moss, vetiver, patchouli, tonka bean, vanilla. It was advertised as the essence of man. Now, Brut definitely brings back memories. This is one that my grandfather had. I don't find anything wrong with this version of Brut. This has been reformulated, but it's as close as you can get to the original as you can. Now there's Brut in a plastic bottle, and that stuff's just bad. It's watered down. It's horrible. When I smell this Brut, it definitely gives me that fresh barbershop type of feeling to it. So there's nothing wrong with wearing a little bit of Brut every once in a while. Look at Halston Z14. Z14 was launched in 1972. The top notes are cypress, grenadine, green notes, basil, bergamot, lemon. The middle notes are coriander, patchouli, cinnamon, jasmine, vetiver, cedar, and geranium. The base notes are leather, tonka bean, amber, musk, benzoin, and oak moss. Now Z14 has also suffered at the hands of reformulation. I still find some notes in there in Z14, but it's, from what I've read, it's definitely not what it used to be. This is another one that I'd like to find a vintage bottle of that's in good condition that I can smell. Let's get on to my top favorites out of my collection of classic scents. Look at Roger and Gallet Open. It first came out in 1985. It's a woody aromatic. Top notes are lemon, bergamot, lavender. Middle is sage, thyme. Bottom is tobacco, patchouli, vetiver. What I get from this is a very herbal, dry tobacco with a little hint of soap in there. It's really beautiful. And out of all the classic scents, I think it's the one that is the most refined still. It still smells pretty close to what I think the original would smell like. Next, we're going to look at Paco Rabanne Pour Homme. Paco Rabanne Pour Homme was launched in 1973. It's an aromatic fougere. We have clary sage, Brazilian rosewood, rosemary. You have tonka bean, lavender, amber, musk, oak moss. What I get out of this is a lot of sage, lavender, honey, tonka, musk, and the oak moss. It's like being in a forest, basically. Now let's look at Versace Le Homme. This is classified as a leather. It came out in 1986. This has a ton of notes also. It has green notes, basil, pentagram, bergamot, lemon, carnation, sandalwood, patchouli, cinnamon, cedar, rose, jasmine, leather, oak moss, vanilla, labdaman. What I get on a Versace Le Homme is I get this spicy citrus blast in the beginning, and then it turns into a very woody, spicy, leathery type of vibe after that. And I like this beauty a lot. And once again, it's been reformulated, so I would love to get my hands on a classic bottle of this. Next up, we have Giorgio of Beverly Hills. This was launched in 1984. It's an oriental woody. It has a ton of notes. It has aldehydes, it has orange, it has fruit notes, it has carnation, it has honey, oak moss. What I get from this is a very herbal, woody, honey citrusy type of vibe. And I remember this one from when I was a kid. It was everywhere. It was the top of its game back in the day in the 80s. Everybody wore Giorgio, so. And it took me back to 1980s, walking back into a department store with my mother and smelling it being sprayed by the perfume girls at the counter. Now let's take a look. Now let's take a look at Drakkar Noir by Guy Laroche. Now, when I looked this guy up, I was like, wow, this guy's actually a flanker. The original was Drakkar that came out in 1972. Now, I'll never know what Drakkar smelled like because I wasn't around then, and they don't make the original anymore. And this also has a ton of notes. It has mint, citrus, it has woods, leather. What I get all this is a blast of citrus and mint in the beginning, and then it turns into a very woody, spicy leather after that. And that's your Drakkar Noir. Next up we have Quorum. It was launched in 1972. it's a very pine, herbal, leathery type of vibe I get from this. When I first opened the bottle of this and sprayed it, I was like intoxicated by it. I said, no, there's a scent of a man. Next up, we have Gray Flannel. Mr. Gray Flannel, I love you, Mr. Gray Flannel. I don't care if the others hate you. And we all know that Mr. Gray Flannel is a love-hate relationship in the community. Mr. Gray Flannel was launched in 1975. It's an Oriental Woody. What I get out of this is a very citrus, woody, flowery type of vibe. I love it. It's fresh. It's clean. It's beautiful. Next up, we have Halston 1 through 12. This was launched in 1976. You have oak moss, pine, lemon, juniper, basil, tonka, aldehydes, musk. What I get from Halston is I get a very beautiful, herbal, citrusy, spicy scent. And of course it's been reformulated like all the rest, and I'd love to get my hands on a vintage. Next up, we have Paul Sebastian Fine Cologne. Paul Sebastian is very beautiful. I get a very spicy, fresh vibe from this. Once again, it's been reformulated by Elizabeth Arden, which I think Elizabeth Arden's evil, so I would like to get my hands on a vintage. But for the reformulation, I really like it a lot. I get a lot of notes out of this, and I think it's beautiful and classic. Next up, we have Pierre Cardin. This was launched in 1972. You have wood, spices, leather. It's a beautiful scent. This is also another one my grandfather wore, so it takes me back. It reminds me of him. So in closing, when we look at these classic scents brings memory. Scent is something to be studied, the notes, what the person was thinking of at the time. We also must look, where do these scents belong in our collection? And I definitely think that there's memories to these scents, and they'll always have a place. Now, you may be wondering, what about this guy? I haven't had a lot of love for this guy lately. He was very strong when I first sprayed him, and I just couldn't get used to him. I even made a video of hate towards him, which I feel bad about. I'm gonna give Aramis another chance. So, Aramis, let's see if I can learn to love you. And there you go, there's your classic scents.